All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this cold December where I am. Not sure where everyone else is, but for our town hall meeting on reentry with CPMC, Catholic Prison Ministry Coalitions. And again, kind of the opportunity for us is to gather together as a community of those ministering to both the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated as it relates to the work of reentry. My name is Father Dustin. I'm a priest here in the Diocese of Pensacola, Tallahassee, and I work here at a house called Joseph House that serves those coming out of Florida's prisons in a kind of more of a residential community, but in other capacities as well. And today we're going to hear from Zach, and I'm going to let Zach introduce himself and the work that he's doing there. If I'm not mistaken, Zach, are you in California?
New York.
Yes, I'm currently in California finishing up a degree, but the work that I started is in New York.
Okay, great. Well, but just so you know a little bit more of the format here, Zach will talk a little bit about the work that he's doing there in New York, and we'll listen definitely attentively, and then after that, then that'll be an opportunity for us to have a conversation. And Zach, if you want to field some questions, I'm sure there'll be questions along the way. You can feel free to place your questions in the comments section just below here in the chat, or not comments, sorry, in the chat, on the chat button. You just click on chat, and then you can post questions, and then I'll try to field those questions as they come, Zach. So without further ado, the mic is all yours, Zach.
Thanks so much, Dustin. Would it be helpful? Would it be okay if I share a little presentation with you? If I share my screen and I can kind of walk people through the words that I'd like to share today, if that's okay?
Definitely. Yeah, sounds great.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to share screen with all of you. Can everyone see the screen that I've shared? Okay, great. So thank you so much for allowing me to be with you today, yet it is a bit remote over Zoom, but I think that something is better than nothing, and I think we're learning all new ways to connect. I want to thank the National Catholic Chaplains Association for this invite. And as I look through my Zoom, I'm seeing old friends in the Zoom. I see Sister Rosa Gwembe, who is a wonderful woman. I mean, I feel a little bit intimidated speaking in front of somebody like Rosa because of all her experience working in prisons all of these years. So I know I'm in the midst of experts. So whatever I have to say here is just a little bit of sharing about what we're doing back in New York, and I look forward to the conversation. So about 3 years ago, I had the privilege of founding a project called Thrive for Life, a prison project. And we're located in New York City. And our mission is very straightforward: transforming lives both behind and beyond US prison walls. Both behind and beyond US prison walls. And we got our start, as I was saying, in 2017. And our project features two works. One is Behind the Walls, and the other is Beyond the Walls. Behind the Walls, we are offering a quality, reflective, and meditative resources for an examined life. And this is all based in the spirituality of St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits and the author of the spiritual exercises. So for those who are familiar with the exercises, it's basically 18th annotation, rooted in the examination of conscience, and then offering different meditative and reflective resources such as contemplations and meditations. And the people that do this are parishioners of Jesuit parishes, in New York or New Jersey, or they're alums of our universities and our colleges. And then beyond the walls, outside of the walls, we offer a continuity of care for our formerly incarcerated friends who are continuing their college education that they started while they were locked up. And so we are very happy to have a house of studies in New York City called Ignacio House. It's a transitional supportive living community just near Fordham University. And I'll be speaking a little bit more about that. Okay, so let me just share with you a little bit about our mission. As many of you all know, over 2.2 million men, women, and children are incarcerated within our country, and over 600,000 are re-entering our communities after incarceration. But probably what's most staggering about these numbers, if the numbers aren't alarming enough, is that 43 will go back to prison within a year, and even more, 70% will go back within 3 years. And we've identified three reasons or three barriers to any successful reentry. One is a real sense of purpose, a lack of connection to a higher power, a limited a network of trust and meaningful support once people get out. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Formerly incarcerated people are 10 times more likely to be homeless, and 54% go directly into a city shelter system. And that's a particularly representative of the Northeast. While our brothers and sisters are locked up, there's very limited access to education. We all know that the 1994 crime bill depleted the Pell Grant accessibility to people who are incarcerated. And employment, we know in 2020, 65% of jobs required a college education, making formerly incarcerated people 7 times more likely to be unemployed. And some of these, unfortunately, statistics are not updated given our present circumstances. So Thrive for Life offers our retreats behind the walls, and beyond the walls, our target market is really students, people who have started their college education once they were locked up. Over 86% of that population, that student body population within that mammoth number of incarcerated people, are within these 13 states, to the best of our knowledge. And these come from Vera Institute and the Pew polls and things of that nature. And the people are a lot like Jarrell. We met Jarrell while he was locked up in Rikers Island, and then he continued on our retreats when he went to serve his prison sentence. He started taking some college classes, and now he's a resident of Ignacio House in New York. And we're very happy to report that he's starting his MBA next semester. And we all know that education is the crucial, most secret ingredient to not only keeping people out of prison, right? It's not just a matter of recidivism, but it's also a poverty issue. It cuts the cycle of poverty, right? It's not enough to just be on the curb somewhere but not going back to prison. But what is it that adds to that great Catholic, very ingredient of Catholic social teaching of human flourishment? What makes an individual, what allows an individual to be able to thrive? Well, education is certainly a key ingredient. And so Thrive for Life, its transformative model, covers 4 areas: a sense of purpose through our quality, reflective, and meditative resources; education, our scholarships to local universities once people get out and live at Ignacio House; our housing at Ignacio House that's transitional and links people to permanent affordable housing upon the completion of their studies; and then job workforce training with local employers. So this kind of theory of change just gives a brief overview of the different activities, talking about behind the walls, our retreats, our scholarships to local universities, the transitional housing. One of the unique things about us, it links you to permanent housing upon completion of the program, so as not to perpetuate the cycle of homelessness within our municipalities; and then job workforce training with supportive services. In just 3 years, we've been able to offer 6,000 women and men our spiritual exercises through our retreats behind the walls. 24 residents are currently in our Ignacio House enrolled in college. 14% of them have already been linked to permanent housing, and 100% of them are working. And yes, even in the midst of the pandemic. So one of the things about Thrive for Life is that it's of great value to any one of our sisters and brothers behind the wall who wants to continue their education, knows deeply the supportive services that are necessary for a successful re-entry, and doesn't want to be couch surfing from friends to family or even be reduced to the unsafe city shelter system. So we take our referrals either through our retreat programming or through our university partnerships that are doing the education behind the walls. And then they are brought into our supportive living community at Ignacio House of Studies in New York. And then upon completion of the program or their degree, and after ensuring the necessary financial sustainability, they're linked to that permanent affordable housing as they move on with their careers and their lives. And we don't do this alone. We do this in partnership with a great network of people like yourselves who are doing the great work of accompanying our brothers and sisters behind the wall. So through our retreat programming, our spiritual mentors all come from either parishioners of Jesuit parishes or they're alums of universities and our high schools. Our students are linked to scholarships, which is only made possible through our university partners. Real estate owners and developers are the ones that help us certainly acquire our transitional supportive house, but also our permanent affordable housing, and then job workforce training and professional coaching for those who are continuing their job work while they're in school or after they do this. And this is just a few logos to just name a few of our partnerships. Certainly COVID-19 has been a great challenge for us, but we've tried to make it an opportunity for our community. 100% of the residents who were at Ignacio House lost their job at the dawn of the pandemic. Those who are re-entering the community from incarceration had limited resources upon re-entry, focused to operate virtually. And for those who are familiar with the prison system know that computer skills is not something that is highly recommended to people who are locked up, with minimal job opportunities, and most staggering, they were excluded from the CARES Act. And these numbers of people who are with the coronavirus behind the walls just keeps going up as we continue to close down. But our mission has continued, and it's been our opportunity. We meet weekly on Wednesdays, the residents up at Ignacio House with our spiritual mentors. We meet for reflection and prayer and sharing. We send a newsletter of spiritual exercises to all our sisters and brothers behind the walls every month so they can continue with their own prayer and relationship with the church. And then birthdays, we've been sending care packages so that they know that we're thinking of them. We're happy to report that beyond the walls at Ignacio House, all the residents are taking their college classes through a newly refurbished learning center in the basements of our house. Everyone is employed and safe and secure in the midst of these challenging times. At the dawn of the pandemic in March, we revitalized and renovated our backyard and turned it into a community garden to help grow vegetables and plants and herbs for the local food pantry, and renovated one of our basements to make it a learning center to respond to these new learning opportunities and these new learning experiences through distance learning for our students. So finally, last but not least, we've been really talking about taking our show on the road. So what we've done is we've targeted these 13 states with the highest concentration of incarcerated students. And in 3 years, we'd like to have 3 more houses, which would total 4 Ignacio houses, and be behind the walls offering our spiritual exercises in 6 states. And so we'd like to target those and then leverage the opportunities that we have with our Jesuit University network that's around the country, who will be able to link us to those university partnerships who are offering the good work of college education behind the walls. So that's just a way of giving you a short overview and introduction to the mission of Thrive for Life, but also the vision of what our organization is doing, and also sharing with you a little tidbit of our ambitions for these next 3 years.
Well, thank you so much, Zach. Sounds like a very comprehensive and incredibly holistic approach to reentry. I've got a lot of questions, but before I start asking, first, Raymond asked if it was possible to get a copy of the presentation, Zach, and that we could maybe share it with some of those here. Would that be possible? Oh,
sure, I'm happy to send that around. Yes, sure.
Okay. Great. Well, yeah. Any questions for Zach?
My immediate response is Marquette University here in Milwaukee. Who's the contact? Who do I talk to?
So Marquette is doing, I've been in conversations in Milwaukee for the last 2 years. Marquette University is doing absolutely fabulous work. And actually, I was just in a meeting last week, 2 weeks ago with them, with another Jesuit, and they're actually looking to increase the number of college classes they're offering behind the walls. So actually, just today, I'm getting sent some contacts at Marquette University. But first of all, the city of Milwaukee, I have a special place in my heart for, because my brother lives there. My brother lives there. He's the assistant coach for the Marquette University basketball team, men's basketball team. And also, they have a wonderful network of people who are really ripe and ready to do something like this behind the walls, but also beyond the walls. They want to offer that continuity of care that's necessary for the successful and permanent reentry of our sisters and brothers.
Because I hadn't heard anything about this connected with Marquette until today. So I think it's another one of those things. We have so many things going on. People are working in different areas, and we're just trying to start coordinating them. We just started having what we're calling a reentry council meeting monthly, and it's, different ministries, Project Return, all sorts of other things. So my first, thought is, I really like to be able to reach out to the people at Marquette and try to make a connection with them.
Fantastic. I would just email me, and then we can all get in a email thread together, if that's okay.
Okay. What's the email?
Oh, sure. I can put that in let me put that in my
chat
box. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Well, Robert, what you just said is this is kind of the purpose of Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition, is precisely to network all of these programs that we didn't even realize. I'm in Tallahassee, not too far though from Mobile, so that makes me think Spring Hill, and it seems like a lot of opportunities once we actually start finding and hearing the good things that are going on around us. So, anyone else a question
up here in Wisconsin? We need all the help we can get.
Mm-hmm. Sure, Craig.
Great. Father Zach, wonderful, energizing presentation. Very, very well done. I'm joined on the call today with 3 others from the Order of Malta, each of us individually involved in different types of prison ministry. As you look at making your way up to Boston, we have within our ranks in the extended Boston area, we have within our membership ranks many with ties to both Boston College and Holy Cross. That would be no surprise. And I'll send you an email offline. Would welcome any and all opportunities to, explore ways to collaborate with those who are either currently involved in prison ministry or might, through what you're doing, welcome an opportunity to get newly involved. I was hoping you might just tell a little bit more or share a little bit more about your retreats inside the walls. And Mike McGarry is on, Doug Sandvig involved in Kairos. and would love to just hear a few more details, because there are a number of different programs, rec programs. They're all a little bit different, and would welcome just hearing just a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. And yes, I look forward to continuing the conversation with you about the Northeast. Please email me so we can be in touch. I would really appreciate that. Yeah. So behind the walls, our retreats are either day-long retreats, or they're monthly retreats, or they're weekly retreats. It varies on each correctional facility. And we go in and we offer exercises from St. Ignatius's spiritual exercises. So for example, we do the examination, the Ignatian examen, and we do that in a guided meditation form. And then everyone gets together and they share about the graces, gratitude, challenging moments. And then we also do other exercises from St. Ignatius's spiritual exercise, where we do gospel contemplations, where you put yourself in the scene of the Gospels, you feel, think, and experience the different characters. Sometimes that manifests itself within the inmate retreat participants act out the scene in the Gospel, right? They take on a character, and then they feel the emotion of that character, and they feel Jesus come to them in the midst of their struggle and pain and hurt. And all that does is foster a deeper, more intimate relationship with Christ. So yes, behind the walls, we're deeply rooted in the Ignatian tradition, and using the Ignatian exercises and bringing those to the inmate retreat participants in a very tangible, but yet in very engaging way. And I must say that that's exactly what we do. So, you know, oftentimes, like I've spoken on a rec retreat before, you know, sometimes rec, they give talks on a dogma or a doctrine of the church, or the sacramentality of the church. That is not what our retreats are. Our retreats are really rooted in the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola, which goal and aim is for to praise, reverence, and serve God our Lord, right? So whatever ways in which we can offer exercises that bring people to a closer, more deeper intimacy with that, we do that.
Thanks, Craig. Yeah, Michael.
I think you might be muted, Michael.
Father, how do you get inside the walls?
Yeah, that is like the $1 million question, right? Well, I think Rosa Guambe can maybe answer some of this. You know how we get behind the walls? Here's the short answer. We are blessed in this country with very talented, innovative, and creative prison chaplains. That's how you get behind the walls. They know who to talk to make sure that you get behind the walls. The simple, straightforward answer is, Michael, you have to have clearance. You have to have clearance to be able to go behind the walls, and everyone has to have clearance. And then another short answer is, every correctional facility is as unique as every person in that correctional facility. Everybody kind of operates on their own rules. And what we need to do is pray for the grace of the virtue of patience, humility, and generosity, because the one of the similarities of the Department Corrections in every state, this is the one similarity. The Department Corrections in every state, from my experience, all operate on 2 speeds, slow and stop. So you have to be able to move to that level. And it's often the prison chaplains who can move the system along a little bit quicker, because they're behind the walls.
Father, I have another question. Outside the walls, do you have a cost figure per ex-offender?
Yes. So right now, actually, we're in the midst of our end of the year campaign. So I can answer that very quickly. Right now, it costs us $1,000 per month per resident, which is 1/10 of the cost of what it costs the city shelters. Right now, the city shelters are costing $100 a day to house one person, where we can do that for $9-10 a day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Jennifer, yes.
Zach, I don't know if you remember me, but you were driving the van to
Oh,
Calipatria.
yes. We went to Ironwood together.
No, Calipatria.
Calipatria, that's right.
And that was my first time with JRJI when I was just exploring, because I'd done a concert in a prison up here, and a man told me he'd been praying for Ignatian retreats for years. So I just want you to know that.
So good to see you.
You too. I've been meaning to reach out. So JRJI Northwest was founded. And we are behind the walls with Ignatian retreats and ministry and programming up here. It's nothing explosive like yours, but we are.
Fantastic.
And we're working with spiritual directors and the Jesuit institutions in the region. And so I work for the province. So it'd be great to talk about what's going on and your plans for Washington. So
absolutely.
Really good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jennifer. Thank you for all your good work, determination, and persistence with this project. That's great.
And it's amazing. All of you know, you can tell from Zach's presentation, like you were just beginning this when I met you, and it's phenomenal what you did in these years.
Thanks a lot, Jennifer. Thanks for being here.
Can I just say, if you haven't heard Jennifer's song, you need to hear Jennifer's song. She should put it in the chat.
Please do.
All right. Yeah, I wrote it because of Pope Francis's visit when we talked with the men at Calipatria and how they responded to his visit. So yeah, I'll post a video in the chat.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
We have a question here from the chat box from Bernie. Bernie asks, what is the most helpful thing you, Zach, have heard from prison chaplains? And what is the least helpful things that prison chaplains can say?
The most helpful thing of prison chaplains?
Yeah, I'm guessing, in other words, maybe just in terms of collaborating or cooperating initiative, and then maybe some of the things that have caused hindrances or obstacles to the work behind bars.
Mm-hmm. You know, I would share this story if Rosa was on the call or not, but Rosa Gwembe, it would be the archetype of what you mean by a chaplain in prison. And, you know, the only reason why you know what an archetype is, right, is because you can see what the opposite is as well. Okay. So I think of Rosa as you might think of a pastor of a parish, right? She has a whole flock that she's been entrusted to as their shepherd. And she shepherds these people to a closer relationship with Jesus. And she wants all she can get to bring people in that can be resources and be services for these people that she shepherds. And I think actually that's exactly the ingredient of a good chaplain, is that someone who can facilitate all of that seamlessly. Because the opposite, sadly, is true too. And I don't need to get into details about that because we can only use our imagination, right? But what also is true is there are people like Rosa who do everything possible. You know, Rosa has a unique way of forming community relationships with the prison. So she lets the people in the community know that this prison is in your backyard and these are God's holy people. And how can we be more engaged with these people that we don't see? And I think that's what a good chaplain does, is they bring in the quality resources and services that will help the people that we've been entrusted to shepherd, if that makes sense.
Well, well, Rosa, Sister Rosa would love to hear, perhaps if you have a response or comment, or even just some of your own experiences as a chaplain.
I forgot to mention one thing. You know, Rosa is from the Basque country of Spain, and you need a good Basque to be able to facilitate the prison chaplaincy. Anyway, sorry, Rosa.
Well, I feel really humbled and you know, of all the comments that Zach has made. Every prison is different. I'm now at the second prison. I used to be at the men's prison, now at the women's prison. And so every situation is different, and being able to connect with people outside and inside, you know, in my own parish to begin with, and friends and resources. I had to say that prior to entering this ministry of chaplaincy at the prison, I was a volunteer for some years before, and so it gave me that perspective that it was helpful as well. And then I also worked at the diocese for some time, so that was also a good asset for me. That, you know, the priests know me, I know people, and so making connections is always very helpful. And also making connections with wonderful Jesuits at NACC, or Father Michael Kennedy, and some others has been also very, very helpful in my life, you know. And so it's basically a kind of making connections, you know, one of the main activities for me as a chaplain, and making sure to remove as many barriers as possible as we find at the prison. And so it is important also that we make good connections with people who are, you know, who run the prison. And so, because if they trust you, if they know that you are not their enemy, that you are trying to help the inmates, but you are not against their job, that helps a lot. And so that has been one of the ways by which, you know, we've got help. We have been able to do a number of things like retreats with ZAG and some others, and, you know, bringing resources, bringing concerts and different activities that even when at the beginning, sometimes even the warden or our supervisor might be a little bit leery about, if they see that everything is well planned and is well developed, and in the end, you know, the inmates respond well and behave well, and they have good comments about, and they see that it's productive, then they support you much more in whatever projects you have in mind. So that has been my experience, really. And as I learn every day, you know, because one of the things that along with what Zach said at the prisons, is that leadership and authorities and supervisors change constantly. People are continually moving in, you know, going upward in their positions. So it's a constant judgment to see who is the supervisor, how do I deal with, what are her goals or his goals, and how my goals can mingle with and match with. So we both, you know, the plans of the warden and the other chaplains and everything all come together.
Great, thank you, Rosa. I'm going to take this moment real quick to ask a question, Zach. A couple of years ago, I was in Amman, Jordan, and visiting with a friend there, and then some of the Jesuits, and they had a similar program that was educational, providing degrees, accredited degrees, with refugees, Somalian refugees, from Rwanda, all over, Syrian refugees as well. And when I was there and hearing, and then actually going into some of the classrooms, I thought, wow, this would be a really good model for so many of the men that I visit in the prisons in Florida, especially because in many ways, because of the literacy issues and the lack of a formal education among, I would say, well over 75% of the men that I serve. Is there, in your program and in this work, is there work that goes in preparing individuals for college degrees, or helping them accessing GED materials and such, just kind of preparing them for those types of classes?
Thanks, Dustin. That's a great question. Yeah, the Jesuit higher education at the margins is what Dustin was referencing. That is in Amman, and it's actually based out of Regis University in Denver. And we've been in conversation with them about some things with regards to our Ignacio House of Studies. So behind the walls right now, we simply do the retreats based in Ignatian spirituality, but the college prep work we do at Ignacio House. So not everybody is ready. Like, for example, NYU is one of our closest partners at Ignacio House. Well, just because you took classes through NYU while you were locked up does not mean you're ready to take classes in NYU's classroom once you get out. So there's some preparatory support that needs to take place to get people ready for that next step. And that's the kind of continuing education or preparatory classes that we do on the outside. On the inside, only through partnerships, but not concretely through our organization.
All right, thank you, Zach. Yeah, so any other questions or comments from anyone here? Yep, Tom.
Hi, Father. I'm Tom Marthaler. I'm based in Chicago. I'm part of the Ignatian Volunteer Corps. And there's three of us actually who work in Chicago at Colby House. We're the jail ministry site for the Archdiocese of Chicago. And my question has to do with your discussion around the spiritual exercises that you're conducting. What type of training do the volunteers go through to do that?
Thank you, Tom, and thanks for your good work at Colby in Chicago. That's really important. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Yeah. So the training for the spiritual mentors is really crucial, Tom, because what we're doing behind the walls is so specific, right? We're doing so. The spiritual mentors that come to be a part of our retreat team have a variety of different experiences. Some are actually certified Ignatian spiritual directors on the outside, so they need very little training as we're preparing the retreats. Some are in direction themselves, right? So they too know what's going on. Many of them made the 19th annotation, so they too would have a background in this. But we do have an orientation for people who are specifically going to go in to the behind the walls for the retreats, and an orientation to help them and support them as they're planning the certain retreats, because there's certain ingredients that are a part of every one of our retreats. The examine is certainly a part of every one of our retreats, and then a contemplation or a meditation is a part of each one of our retreats. Not to mention, Tom, as you know from all your work, not to mention all the orientation that has to take place just to be a part of the context of a carceral system. That actually sometimes takes more orientation than the spiritual exercises, just because it's a whole nother environment that we're to do ministry in. And actually the actions of volunteers can make or break a relationship with a correctional system. So that orientation is really, really, really important, and we take it very seriously.
Thank you.
I will quit.
Sorry, I'm muted. Okay, so unmuted. So we have another question, and actually I'm scrolling because I just lost it. Can you see that question, Zach, in the chat box? Let's see if I can find it again. Oh yes, here it is. Do you, actually, no, let me go up. There was okay, yes. So from Adelu, let's see, and sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. So he says here, I serve Christ in his church in Broome County Jail in Binghamton.
New York.
Okay, that's New York.
So you must know Bob Weber, Adelu. Do you know Bob Weber? Father Bob Weber?
No.
Oh, okay. He's the
but actually, I'm on your email list, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to go ahead and feel free to ask your question, Adelu?
I think you might.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the presentation. I appreciate that, the information and the activities. And I must say that I'm also on your email list for some time, so I receive some of information from Thrive for Life. But my question is, given the differences between prison and jail, because I'm a chaplain in the Broome County Correctional Facility, which is a jail. So given the difference between a prison and a jail, my question is, are there differences in your operation in these two spaces? And that moving forward, since I'm having this Zoom contact with you now, it would be helpful if we are able to collaborate and cooperate in these areas. But the question is, are there differences between, in your operations, say between a jail and a prison, given what we know are the peculiarities of each space?
That's a great question, and we would love to come up to Binghamton anytime. Just invite us. So be in touch. We'd love to collaborate with you. Yes, the short answer is yes, and it's based on the very nature of the facility, right? And the answer is about depth. When we're doing retreats in the prison, it's usually every month or every week. It's the same people because they're sentenced to that facility. In a jail, it's a much more transient facility. So each week when we might go to Rikers Island, it's a new group of people because others left and they were sentenced or they were released or they got bail, whatever it might be. So the answer to your question is the transient nature of things. So in the jail, given the circumstances of a jail and given the transient nature of a jail, we really hone in on the examination of conscience in the jail. We use the examine as the core piece of what we do in the jail, where in the prisons, we build out a little bit on that through gospel contemplation, through meditation, through sharing, through skits, through, there's more of a community that gets formed around with the retreat participants in a prison because they are detained there, where in a county jail or even in a city jail, it's much more transient. And so we just try to give that one nugget that might stick, right? And use that.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes, I have. My name is Aloma Markey. I got on the call late, and I'm a lay person, and I've been serving in jail prison ministry for over 15 years, and it's mainly jail, a little bit in prison, but where the Lord has put me to serve is in jails, and I minister at the jail here in the Nacogdoches County, and I live in this town of Nacogdoches. So, and I just wanted to comment on what Adelu, I'm probably, like to say, mispronouncing it, and I apologize for that, is saying the differences between jails and prisons are so pronounced. And other thing that is part of the creative stew that we have here is that I'm in the Bible Belt. And so that makes everything, you having that collar on down here going into a jail could be a problem. So, there are those things that, it's just what we have to deal with. And I was wondering we make it up as we go, because I search for best practices. I've looked for connections, could not find them for love nor money. And so we really have to be creative on the hoof and make up what we do. And and the other thing is, it is interdenominational. So there are two Catholics, myself and someone else. Most of the people that we minister to are Protestant or no faith. We have ministering, just like prison, you could be ministering to Wiccan. So I was just wondering if you have some ideas for best practices in a county jail, underfunded, frequently hostile to our presence, no matter what Christian denomination. Best practices for people, best practices in scenarios like that, where the jail system itself is chronically underfunded, staff turnover is super, super high. And I know COVID affects all of that. So that's what I'm asking and commenting on.
A great question. And I admire your courage and your persistence in what you're doing, because though that type of setting can be very difficult. And I know about that firsthand out here in California. The local jail, which will remain nameless, is quite hostile towards Catholics. It's a particularly, so much so that we can't bring in Holy Communion because it's considered contraband, right? Well, from my experience, what I have found is the more, so here's the thing, right? Ignatius has an annotation in the spiritual exercises about giving the person the benefit of the doubt. That's the gist of it. So what I have found is the less you do to increase the hostility and the more you do to diffuse it, the better. So I have found an old Ignatian trick: go inside their door. So what do they want? They love Bible study. They love Bible study. Love it, love it, love it. Well, guess what? Surprisingly, Catholics love the Bible too. So we can do Bible study. And one of the ways that, one of the things that happens in the midst of that is, like for the jail that I'm speaking of, I went in under the guise of that I was doing Bible study. I did Bible study. Really what we were doing was we were reflecting on the liturgical readings for that prior year and doing Lectio Divina attached to it. See how that goes?
Yeah. And
so,
we discovered something like that too.
Yeah. And then we pray for a spiritual communion. I mean, there are ways that you're right, best practices. I mean, there are ways to get around this. And then I want to say this: as you form relationships with the other contingencies, okay? Rosa is a master at this. She can form a relationship with people who don't do much, who do a lot, who's in high power. She said it very well. Once they realize you're not against them as much as they might be against you, is maybe how I might package that. Once they realize you're not against them, or that you're not taking something from them, or you're not a threat to them, that's your inroad. That's right. There's the gravy. That's the gravy. Now, the virtue of patience is come Holy Spirit, because it can be quite trying. Yeah. But call on the name of Jesus and trust in it, because I do believe in that, because it's a real thing. There are systems in place that can trip us up, but it's also a moment to be in solidarity with our brothers and sisters behind the walls, right? There's the systems that trip them up their entire lives.
Yes.
So many people have been against them their entire lives. So I think that taking baby steps, do exactly what you're doing. The persistence that you have, always showing up, being there, smiling, finding that common denominator and forming those relationships, I think is golden.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great response, Zach. Aloma, where are you? Where are you again? I'm sorry.
I'm in deep East Texas. So in between Dallas, and that's what the area is called, deep. That's a whole distinction unto itself. Deep East Texas, in between Dallas and Houston, between Tyler and Shreveport. So it's very isolated place. And we have created, now this is all before COVID. COVID's a different deal. So we're having to, like everybody else, turn on a dime. We have created, in partnership with various people, creating a reentry program for women, because women are, in the whole process, are the most underserved of anybody behind, well, maybe people with disabilities would qualify to be more underserved. So we're creating that as well.
Well, God bless you, Aloma. And Karen, actually, you're not, I mean, I know everything in Texas is kind of far in a way, but you're not too far. You're in Austin. I don't know. Do you have any?
It's a distance, but Aloma, thank you. Thank you for your ministry. And I want to just, another ministry that I've been involved in for 15 years plus is Ignatian Spirituality Project. And it's another one that's taken the Ignatian exercises and blended them with the 12 steps. And so it's a wonderful thing, because the ones that we take on retreat are women that are formerly incarcerated, majority of them. And majority of them are non-Catholic. I think we've only had one or two through 15 years of retreats that are Catholic, or they have Catholic maybe grade school, but that haven't darkened the door since. But I was just going to say, don't fear the examine, and because it is kind of, you can move into 12-step language, and then you quickly can move back and forth. And they're so familiar with so many of the nation prayers through 12 steps or other programs that they've been in, that it's not, it's finding God in all things. It's a very easy way to connect with people that doesn't feel so Catholic to them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very natural language, very God-centered language. And so it's a nice blend. But I'd love to visit with you offline, so I'll send you mine.
Oh, great. Yeah, and I just put my email in there in the chat. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. All right. And Jennifer, yes.
So I'm in Washington State, so it's not the Bible Belt, but I think we are still considered the least church state in the Union. So what we have in common is really strong anti-Catholicism in the prisons, as reported, and a very, very strong evangelical kind of stranglehold on the ministries. And so when I met a gentleman he's a lifer who'd been praying for Ignatian retreats for years, and I was just inside for a concert. So that was kind of wild. And so I started working with the system. And at first, all I could do was get badged to start attending Catholic services. And this might not work in jails because of the turnover, but what really happened that was transformative was the men themselves became the allies, because the DOC chaplain who was, controlled it, he was pretty anti-Catholic. And he kept telling me, you can't bring your program here because there's not many Catholics and you'll only get 6 or 7 people. But we always intended for our Ignatian program to be very interfaith and open and welcoming. So what the Catholic men said is, Jennifer, we're going to recruit some of the Protestant leaders out on the yard because they're really powerful in the prison. And they said, we'll get them to get on the call out for Catholic services and you can come in and meet with them. So 3 different men who were strong leaders among the Protestants on the yard and in the prison, they came, we met, kind of gave them a taste of what Ignatian spirituality is and what the retreat program would be. And it cracked me up. They were silent and they were staring. And I finally said, so what do you think? And they looked at each other and they all put their thumbs up. So then because the DOC chaplain is very aware of what's happening on the yard and kind of where the movers are in the system, he said, okay. And so he said, you'll only get 5 or 6 for your first retreat. And we had 28. And soon we were up to 60. So I think if there's any way to use the allies behind bars, if any other systems have that, or to just attend, get badged and, attend other things, that was a key for us. And like Zach said, it's really slow here in Washington State because of that. We're just getting into our 2nd prison because there's just a lot of distrust towards Catholics, but it's happening.
God, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I know we're getting to maybe just a couple more minutes left here. So I don't know if anyone maybe has a final kind of question or comment here. Okay, down to Joanne.
Hello, Father Zach, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And thank all of you for all the work that you do. I'm in prison ministry here in South Jersey. But what I bring to the table, is that I'm also a registered nurse. So I combine, because I deal with women in the jail system, so that's the level where I am, and I'm dealing a lot with substance abuse. So I have been using the 12-step, the Lectio Divina, the Examine, and I bring it in because of how I was able to kind of sell myself to the prison system was that I was going to teach life skills. So in teaching life skills, health education, I was able to intertwine all of the others. I was amazed and actually had the warden observe what I was doing so that it became more acceptable, that it worked. So now I am in a diocesan, I work for Catholic Charities now, and I'm coordinating addiction, healing, and recovering. So trying to look at different ways or models, and Father, your model is perfect. Perfect to the extent that I hope that you will give me permission to pick and choose something that I could put together for our diocese. So thank you so much for this fantastic presentation and everyone who is sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for all your good work. Please be in touch, Joanne. We just expanded last year to the New Jersey State Prison in Trenton, and we do monthly retreats there. So please be in touch, because we can collaborate. That'd be great. And thanks for all your good work and caring for people as they're moving through their recovery. Wonderful work.
Okay, I think maybe Zach, I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to share before we close here. I mean, part of me is thinking, you know, it sounds like I know I can speak. Well, I'll speak for myself. I mean, I would love to. So many of the guys that I visit with, and some of the guys here at the house here, to sit in on some of these retreats or these classes, even if remotely, just to get a taste of higher education. Because I found for those that are capable and have are ready for it, once they're exposed to a higher education, it becomes top priority. And so I don't know if there's a way for us, and I know we can be in email, but if there's anything else that you would say, if we're interested in what we've heard today, where should we go next? Perhaps a website or...
And Dustin, thank you for that. And your house, I mean, one of the very quick and short answers is, let's set up a Zoom with the guys that are in your house and the guys that are at Ignacio House, and we can just do some face sharing together. They would love that. And we have a beautiful learning center that we were able to put together at the house, and we're Zooming all the time down there. So just to get everybody together through Zoom would be a great thing, to just share experiences, because that encounter is I think the most important thing, that the intimacy of seeing the face and being able to share stories. I think that's where the new birth comes place. That's where life is brought about. So let's be in touch, because I think that's great. As far as last minute things, you know, I just would like to say this for a last comment. It's deep gratitude. You know, I just want you all to know how grateful I am for all of you. You know, I was just ordained last month as a transitional deacon, and will be ordained a priest in June. I've been a Jesuit for 10 years. I have to tell you, you know, your lives are an inspiration to my own religious life. The dedication that you have to people who are so forgotten, right? They're not on the streets as we're getting on the subways or trying to get into a store. They're not hitting us up for money as we're walking down the streets. They're not pushing for document. They're actually quite secluded. They're a silent poor, a secluded poor. And the fact that you expose their lives and you bring life to their lives behind the walls, I have to say, whenever I have the opportunity of being behind the walls, hearing the stories of the volunteers and the chaplains that go behind the walls, how much life that brings to them, how much hope, how much inspiration. I don't think you'll ever really know the depth of how you're transforming so many lives. And I want you to know I am deeply grateful for you, and I'm deeply grateful for your leadership in the church. We need more leadership in the church like you.
Well, thank you so much, Zach. And we'll do that. What we just heard is our prayer. That is our closing prayer. And Zach, I'm sure everyone else would say right back to you. We're so grateful for your vision, for your Ignatian creativity and being able to reach those on the peripheries. So may God give you so many blessings and all the funding necessary to continue to expand. And next month, we will have our town hall meeting. I believe it's on the 21st, and it's one parish, one prisoner program by Joe Cotton in the Archdiocese of Seattle. The date, Karen, can you correct me on that? I think
yes, you're right. I'm sorry. The reentry, our next town hall for reentry will be January the 21st, same time. I want to just call to mind that we are holding our next webinar is going to be January the 13th, and it is on addressing racism. It's a time for gospel courage by Dr. Chris Pramuk from Regis University. And there will be a little prep to that, but I really encourage everyone, no matter what stage of ministry that you're in, to be part of that webinar. That's so crucial to our ministry. And then the other, we will have our another town hall on January the 7th. And all that publicity will be coming out this week. I don't want it to get lost in the Christmas part, but just so please do look for it. And I just want to echo will be Father Zach, Deacon Zach, that we are so grateful for this presentation. And I'm so grateful and thank you for those words of praise for everybody on this and gratitude to everybody on this call, because this is what's making CPMC a viable, sustainable organization. A coalition is what we're trying to do, is to support each other and to not work in silos any longer, but to work collaboratively. So as a church and as a ministry. So thank you so much. And thank you, Dustin, for your amazing work that you do daily, everyone. And wishing you Advent blessings and a wonderful Christmas season.
Amen. Thank you, Karen. All right. Well, yeah. Well, on that note, Merry Christmas, everyone. And we'll see you soon, and we'll be in contact.
Thank you all.